I have a great question for you. Have you ever had a moment as a leader where you thought, if I do this, will people still respect me? Like, if I jump in and do the messy work, if I admit I was wrong, if I serve instead of being served, will my team still see me as the leader? Because most of us were trained to believe authority looks like a clearly defined hierarchy and distance. Paul, Jesus shows us something completely different. Now stay with me as we dive deeper to find out. Hey, friends, thanks for joining me today on Leading with Bill. I'm Bill Martin, your personal leadership coach, and this is where biblical wisdom can transform your leadership in life. When we look in the Bible in John chapter 13, it takes place the night before Jesus goes to the cross. The room is loaded with tension, where Jesus knows what's coming. Betrayal and suffering and ultimately crucifixion. And the disciples, well, they're still doing what people do. They're sorting out status. Who's closest? Who's the greatest? And who matters most? And in that moment, when you would expect Jesus to pull rank, to demand loyalty, to make sure that everyone understands who's in charge, he does something that would have made the room go quiet. It wasn't a sermon, wasn't a power move. Got on his knees with a towel and a basin. Let's read together through that moment in John 13, verses 3 through 5. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Let's pause here for a second. That first phrase matters. Jesus knew. John is telling us that Jesus served from a place of total security. Foot washing wasn't a sweet symbolic gesture. No, it was the lowest job in the house. Roads were dusty, no paved sidewalks, got open sandals. This was the work you gave to the person with the least status, often a servant. So when Jesus gets up and grabs the towel, it's not just humility. It's status reversal. He flips the status ladder upside down. It's leadership that refuses to use power the way the world uses power. And here's the big idea for today. Servant leadership isn't passive. It's secure authority expressed through humility. So let's look at three specifics that Jesus does. First, Jesus uses authority to lift others, not elevate himself. John 13, verse 3 says the Father had given him all things into his hands. So Jesus had the right to be served, and he chose to serve. Now, over in Philippians 2, verse 7, it says of Jesus that he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. That's the difference between worldly leadership and kingdom leadership. Worldly leadership asks, how do I protect my position? Jesus asks, how do I use my position to bless people? Second, Jesus models the standard before he demands it. Jesus doesn't start with a speech about humility. Hear ye, hear ye. No, he simply demonstrates it. Now, don't miss this. This is a word for every leader watching. If you want a culture of ownership, you model ownership. If you want a culture of service, you model service. If you want a culture of honesty, you model honesty. Leading by example has a far greater impact, just as Jesus showed us. Third, Jesus notices the unseen work and dignifies it. This one is significant. There was a basin in the room. Someone could have volunteered, but nobody did. And Jesus steps into what everyone else avoided. Servant leadership often looks like noticing what's being neglected and moving first, not for applause, not to make a point, but because love moves. Take a moment here. If you're finding value in today's discussion, hit like and subscribe and share it with someone who's intentionally looking to grow in their leadership in life. Back to the story in John 13. If we keep reading further, Peter objects. He's basically saying, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And you can hear it. This isn't right. This isn't the order of things. And Jesus responds with both firmness and grace. Servant leadership doesn't mean the lack of boundaries. It means you're willing to do what love requires. And here's an interesting moment when Jesus explains the leadership lesson. Not in a parable, but direct with truth and grace. Let's read John 13, verses 14 and 15. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Notice what Jesus does. He keeps his title, Lord and teacher. He doesn't deny authority. He redefines what authority is for. Now, this wasn't the only moment that Jesus modeled servant leadership. In Mark 10, verses 35 through 45, it's when the disciples, James and John, make a pretty bold request of Jesus for each one to sit at his right and left hand when they get to heaven. Whoa, they're asking for the highest seats of honor next to Jesus because they think they are the greatest. Jesus says the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over people. Not so with you. And in verse 35, punctuates the leadership lesson with, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. What a beautiful statement. And earlier we referred to Philippians 2, but the entire passage of verses 5 through 11 shows us Jesus humbled himself, and then God exalted him. It's teaching us that humility isn't weakness. It's strength under control. What amazing examples of how Jesus demonstrates servant leadership. So let's take leading like Jesus and see how we can apply these today. Servant leadership with authority is not being a doormat. It's not avoiding hard conversations. It's using your authority to create an environment where people can do their best work. Now, here are a few towel moments at work. First, jump into the messy work during a crunch, not to rescue people from responsibility, but to show we're in this together. Second, you own mistakes quickly and publicly. Yeah, that one's on me, and here's what I'm changing. Third is you remove barriers. You use your authority to get resources, to clarify priorities, and you protect focus. And finally, you create psychological safety. People experience your leadership as protection, not pressure. Here's a gut check question. Do people experience my authority as pressure or as protection? So here's your challenge. Do one action this week where you are serving your team, and don't announce it. And then reflect. What did it reveal about my heart? Did I feel the need to be seen? Did it build trust? Jesus didn't lose authority when he picked up the towel. He showed us what real authority is for. Friends, thanks for joining today on Leading with Bill. Remember, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and we'll see you next time.